Welcome to USF College Daily. I'm Jill Langland.
And I'm Whitney Fryer.
And today we actually have a new anchor member with us, Casey Kelderman.
Well, thanks for having me, girls.
Yeah, no problem.
Great
It's
to
great
have
to
you
have
here.
you.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so obviously we all know a few weeks ago we had and discussed the 10 ballot
we did.
measures.
Yep.
We did.
Yep.
And on November 8th, we voted for them, and now we're here to talk about them.
Yes, we are. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, Casey?
Well, first off, Amendment U, which was limited the ability to set statutory interest rates for loans, it did not pass.
Right, that's right. But on the other hand, Measure 21 did pass, and that's going to cap interest rates for state lenders at 36%. So I think that's going to be a great addition for South Dakota.
And Amendment S, or Marcy's Law, also passed, and it established rights for victims, crime victims, I should say.
I think that'll be a good addition to South Dakota Constitution.
And it seems like all of the ballot measures, this one seemed the least controversial, if that makes sense, because if it wasn't passed, they would still have rights, and if it was passed, they just have a little bit more rights, it seems like.
Right. It allows a victim to be notified if their accuser escapes from prison or is released. So I think it'll be a good addition, definitely, too.
Amendment R also passed this weekend. What did you guys think of that?
It did, and it removed the State Board of Regents' control of post-secondary technical institutions rather than allowing the legislature to decide them.
I think this will be just one you have to kind of watch how it plays out a little bit.
I know I saw a lot of signs for that when you would drive into school.
And then Measure 23, which would have allowed nonprofit organizations such as unions to charge fees to non-members, but that didn't pass. So.
That's not really that shocking because it seems like as a nonprofit, it wouldn't really make sense to charge fees.
Yeah, and if you're not a union member, I don't know if you'd really want to pay fees necessarily to something you don't belong to.
Yep.
Also on that note, Measure 22 did pass this week. This measure would revise South Dakota's campaign finances and lobbying laws, as well as create publicity-funded campaigns for finance programs and ethical commissions. What did you think of that?
I mean, it might be interesting to see how this kind of plays out as well. I think it'll help maybe fight corruption in politics, maybe remove a little bit of that, which I think there is a lot of corruption in politics. I think it's a good direction to head towards, definitely.
Yes. And I will be watching how Measure 22 works out as well.
And then the final 4 other ballot measures we haven't discussed, none of them passed. So which ones were those?
That was referred law 19 and 20. They failed to pass. 19 was revise the timing and method of submitting election petitions if it had passed, and then referred 22. That's the one that would have lowered the minimum wage to $7.50.
Referred law 20 actually.
Yeah,
but yes. If it had passed, it would have lowered the current minimum wage of $8.50 to $7.50, as you mentioned, for those under the age of 18.
And I think their thought process behind that was to have more jobs open for high school students. But at the same time, I personally feel like it's not fair that someone who's 18 is doing the same amount of work as someone who's 17. They should be getting the same amount.
I believe there are 2 more amendments that didn't pass or failed to receive the majority. Why don't you tell us about those?
All right. Yes, Amendment V, which would have established a nonpartisan primary to select candidates for non-presidential federal, state, county elected offices.
So in other words, the amendment would have allowed all qualified voters, regardless of any party affiliation, to vote for any candidate of their choice. I personally feel that that one kind of wouldn't really work, especially in a small state like South Dakota, just because we all know who Paula Hawks is, and we all know who Jay Williams was, and I'm just naming the Democrats here, and who John Thune was. Like, we all know them. They're very big named people. I just feel like you couldn't really hide their party affiliation.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking maybe it would help a little bit just to prevent people from just voting a straight ticket, like a straight red ticket or a straight blue ticket. They would have to maybe put a little more research or thought process into who they want to vote for, rather just saying, wow, I'm Republican, so I'm going to vote for the Republican candidates, or vice versa.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was a little bit disappointed that it didn't pass, but you know what? Maybe we can see it on the ballot next time around.
Yeah, maybe next year the residents of South Dakota will vote on a similar ballot measure again in the future.
I mean, the one regarding the minimum wage, that's actually been on the ballot twice now. So anything is possible,
Amendment T also didn't pass, which would have removed redistricting authority from the legislature and gave authority to separate commission.
Yeah, along with that ballot measures, residents also would have the opportunity to vote for who they wanted to represent them.
Yes, incumbent Republican John Thune, he defeated Democratic challenger Jay Williams. I think it was like 72% to 28%. Excuse me.
See, Noam obviously defeated Paula Hawks by a landslide, I believe. What was
Yeah,
that?
she defeated her, I believe it was a 64 to 36, so
It was
pretty
a pretty-
decisive victory
yeah.
there.
Election night was also a big night for all of Americans as well, not just for
course.
South Dakota.
Republican nominee Donald Trump did win the presidential election. He will now be the 45th president of the United States.
And actually, he didn't win the popular vote, which again happened with Al Gore and Bush back then. And it's just interesting, but he did secure that 270 electoral votes.
But I don't think the election win is, many of us thought it would go, but I still want to wish the best to Hillary Clinton
definitely.
and her future endeavors. Do you guys know when Trump will take office?
On Friday, January 20th of next year, Trump and his vice president, Mike Pence, will take oaths on the U.S. Capitol steps.
And then, although the election may not have turned out as a portion of the U.S. would have wanted it to, Trump will be our next president. And with that, my hope is that everyone keeps an open mind, even though, some people didn't support him and didn't see how, just didn't feel his policies were correct in their viewpoints. But we need to start supporting him and become unified as a nation. Like they all said, Hillary said in her speech, and Obama has been talking. We all just need to kind of get together and unify as a
That's
nation.
definitely how real change
Yes.
happens.
And heal.
If we can all work
Yeah.
together. Yep.
That's well said.